How are you action figure enthusiasts out there? JC here with another T&I toy review. And today's review is in association with JediInsider.com, your #1 news source for everything Star Wars. And for today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at Hasbro's brand new line of Star Wars action figures called HyperReal, with the first figure in the series, Darth Vader. Now this comes in a special collector-oriented packaging. So you've got on the front of the box just a picture of the figure of Darth Vader. This is part of the Black Series line, and then you've got the HyperReal logo and the name of the character down below. On one side, you've again just got an image of the figure. It tells you about some of the features of the figure. The other side is window packaging, so you can see the figure from the side. The back of the packaging, again, another look at the figure, and it tells you again about all the features and everything. And then you can open this up. It just attaches with Velcro. And so on one side, you've got the figure clearly displayed, and then in the middle, you've got more images of the figure showing off the various accessories. And then over on this side, you can see some of the accessories in the window packaging, as well as more images of the figure. All right, let's get this open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside the packaging along with the other contents. Now, first of all, let me just say a big thanks to the folks at Hasbro for sending me this figure out so I could review it for you guys. Now for accessories, you get 4 different pairs of hands. So you get a pair of open hands, and one of these hands has actually a hole in it for the force field accessory piece that comes with it. Then you get this pair of pointing hands. Then you get a pair of just closed-fisted hands. You get a pair of grip hands for holding the lightsaber. And then you get this one choking hand for the right hand. And you can see here, because the endoskeleton is made of metal on this figure, the little ball joint is actually metal, and what you want to do to put a hand on is just push it on there, and it should pop into place. You get this figure stand that looks like a piece of flooring from like Bespin, and it's done with just a dark gray plastic. It's, you know, graded, and you'll notice there's 4 holes here. And then if you turn this thing around, you'll see up here at the top there's actually these pegs, and you can remove these, and then you can basically place them in any of the holes, and you can stand the figure using the peg holes on the feet with any of these various holes. And as long as you use 2 peg holes, it'll stay standing. The figure will stay standing pretty well. I mean, if you shake it a whole lot, it'll probably fall over. But, you know, for the most part, it does work pretty well. Now, one other thing I want to note here on this, you'll also notice on the underside here, this little piece here, and this actually is removable. And then, you know, I don't know what the point of this is. I don't know if there'll be other bases included with other figures that maybe you can connect. Looks like that's how it's going to be. There's a Bespin Luke coming in this line, and so he'll probably have a similar base, and you might be able to fit them together, I guess. And then of course you get his lightsaber, and you know, this is very similar to other scaled figures that we've gotten. You know, the lightsabers that we've seen from Hasbro, you've got the red translucent blade, and that is removable. It just plugs into the hilt, and then you've got metallic silver and black on the handle. You've got a little hook so you can put it on the figure's belt. You've got some detailing with the buttons and everything. Now I will note that mine seems to have come out of the packaging a little warped. You know, you can kind of play with it. If you don't, you have to kind of turn it to get it in there just right. But, you know, I don't know. Yeah, see a little bit there. It's a little bit warped. You can probably take a hairdryer and straighten that out, you know, if that bothers you. And like I said, when he's not using the lightsaber, you can hook the lightsaber hilt on his belt. The little hook is here on the left side of the figure, and you just hook it on there. You gotta, you know, kind of do it, and the hook is kind of a soft plastic, so you know, you have to kind of hook it in there. But once you get it on there, you know, it stays on there pretty good. And then finally you get this force effect piece that goes into that open hand that I showed you with the hole. You just plug it in like that. And I believe this is supposed to be like him using the force to deflect laser blasts. And this is done with a semi-translucent plastic. The ends are done with a rubber, so they do bend a little bit. You can see this one's actually a little bit bent. Okay, so now for the figure itself. So what exactly is HyperReal? So this is a brand new line that Hasbro's launching for Star Wars. It does fall under the Black Series banner, but these are larger than your normal 6-inch Black Series figures. These are about 8 or 9 inches tall. So very similar to the same scale of if you caught my review the other day of the new DC Prime line that DC Collectibles is doing, the Batman figure. So this figure is very similar to that, and I'll actually show you a comparison later in the video with that Batman figure and this one. But it is taller than your 6-inch Black Series figure, so this isn't something that's really going to go along with those. Now, what makes this figure special are primarily two things. First of all, as I briefly mentioned before, the endoskeleton of this figure is made of metal. It's not plastic, it's metal. The figure, I mean, it's not super heavy, but it does have a nice weight to it. And then the other thing that makes this figure special is as you may notice, you don't see any actual joints. It is fairly articulated, but you don't actually see the joints because they're all completely covered by either skin, or in Vader's case, his outfit. These black portions that are armor are actually a rubber material. So it's not soft goods, but it's a rubber type material. And if you've ever handled like a Storm Collectibles Street Fighter figure, then it's kind of that same type of material. So and that completely covers the entire figure, so you don't actually see any of the articulation. And you know, I don't know, some people might like that. My biggest fear with figures like this is that this rubber material over time might start to wear and tear. So that's usually only my concern with this type of thing, but as it is so far as I've been posing it and stuff, it seems to be holding up pretty well. The detailing on the figure, I would say it's not terribly different than what we see with the 6-inch line, you know. So you know, I do like the glossy look of like the helmet, how shiny it is. You know, in Empire and Jedi, his armor tended to be very shiny, and so this figure definitely captures that look quite nicely. Same with like the shoulder pads and stuff, and these are articulated, so they don't limit too much of the arm movement there. And you've got the kind of mixture of matted black and the shiny black there on the chest. And then he's got cloth here over his chest area other than the square breathing apparatus. And then you've got like the white, red, and blue and silver colors there. And I think this is a separate piece, this square thing, but it doesn't really move or anything. So I don't know, it might be glued on there. It's hard to tell exactly how that's attached to the figure. And then he's got the belt with the, I guess, I've always assumed this is a speaker, this belt buckle with the little grates in it. And then, of course, he's got the controls on his belt as well with the greens and the silvers. That's nice detail. This cod piece is a soft plastic. The cape and the skirt piece are soft goods, and I think they hang well on the figure. And then on the boots, he's got like the shin guards, which are shiny, and then the back of the boots are more matted, and you've got some sculpting detail. And then again, like with the legs, this is all that rubber material. Same with the arms and everything. And no, the helmet is not removable, and there's no lights or anything on the figure. So it is pretty much just a sized up 6-inch Black Series figure as far as the overall look. Again, the two big things about this though are the actual endoskeleton is made of metal, and then all the joints are completely covered so that you can't see them. One thing I want to note about the square piece here on his chest, on my figure, it seems like it's a little bit crooked there. It sits a little bit crooked on the figure. I tried adjusting it. It feels like you can kind of move it a little bit. I'm not entirely sure how they have this thing attached to the figure, but it's not like removable or anything. And again, I tried to move it to adjust it, but it just seems to kind of go back into this same position. And again, to me, it just comes off being a little bit crooked. Now, this figure stands just under 9 inches tall. Here's a comparison of that DC Collectibles DC Prime Batman figure. This is another new line being launched by DC Collectibles. I reviewed it the other day. Hopefully you checked out that review. But these two figures are pretty close to being the same height. Then finally, here's a comparison of Hasbro's most recent 6-inch Black Series Darth Vader figure. And you can see these two actually look very similar as far as detail goes, overall detail. The helmet on this new figure is much shinier, which I like. Also, you'll notice like the cloth portion here on the chest goes under the chest piece here, and it goes over on this one. Otherwise, you know, very similar. But again, you can see the joints on this figure, and this is hard plastic, whereas you can't see the joints on this figure, and this is a rubber material. Okay, so for articulation, so the thing about this is you can't see the joints, so first of all you have to kind of feel around for the joints, so it's a little bit different than posing a regular action figure. The other thing to keep in mind is, you know, kind of like when you're dealing with figures that are completely covered in soft goods, you know, that can limit sometimes the movement on the figure. So things like rotating the arm all the way around on the shoulders and stuff can be a little difficult because, again, the joints are completely covered. So, you know, you're kind of basically, you know, giving up, I would say, a little bit of mobility in exchange for essentially not being able to see the joints, which I think some people like. You know, some people feel like the articulation takes away from the figure, and so there's a little bit of give and take, and so that's really kind of a personal preference thing. But let's go over the articulation here. So you can turn the head to the left and to the right. He really doesn't have, he's got a little bit of down movement and really can just look straight ahead because of the helmet. He also gets some head pivot there. So, you know, for a guy wearing a big helmet, he actually has fairly good head movement. And then with the arms, you can get the arm out really good on these, and these shoulder pads are a bit articulated, so they do lift up. But you really, again, you really can't, because of the whole shoulder joint being covered in this rubber material, it's really not terribly feasible to rotate the arms all the way around. Now, I believe there is a bicep swivel in there, but I can't say, you know, you can see I'm moving it a little bit, but again, that gets a little bit limited because of it being completely covered in this rubber material. And then with the elbows, he can bend his elbow about that much. I think it's a single hinged elbow. So, and then you have rotation with the hands, and you get some movement. Now Vader, because the glove and the hand are all one piece, you really, you can do up and down a bit, but it's with the entire glove. You don't have like a hinge joint or anything there on the hands. And then there is a bit of a waist swivel, but again, it's because of the rubber material, it limits some of that. And really Vader can't crunch forward, not that you'd really expect him to. With the legs, he can do the splits pretty good, and then he can get the leg forward pretty good there, and then he can do the leg back about that much. And I don't think there's a thigh swivel on this one. With the knee bending, he can bend his knee about that much. You can bend it more, but it kind of bounces back because of the rubber material there. And then with the feet, he's got up and down movement, and he does have ankle pivot. So decent feet movement there, and then 2 peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Okay, so that's my review. So overall, I would say this is definitely a nice looking figure. I like the details on it. I like the way the shiny armor pieces look, especially with the helmet. The cape hangs well, and I think this will make a great display piece on your shelf. Now, I would definitely view it as a standalone type figure. It is taller than your regular 6-inch Black Series figure, so it's not going to be something you want to display with those. They are doing other figures in this HyperReal line. They're doing Bespin Luke next May, so you know you'll have other figures to display with it. But still, primarily, I would say, you know, look at this as a kind of a standalone deal. As far as articulation, you can still get this figure in some pretty good poses and stuff, but it is a little more limited than a regular 6-inch Black Series in my opinion. Areas like the shoulders you can't move quite as well because those joints are covered. The upside to that, however, is again the overall look of it. You don't see the ugly articulated joints. Now this figure is due out next month in October. We'll have a full image gallery up at JediInsider.com. There'll be a link in the video description below. As always, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're so inclined, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so you're alerted every time I upload a new video. And of course, you can also follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I have links to those in the video description as well. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.